everyone. Welcome to the Glow Zoomcast. I'm here today with Abby Glenn of the Sybils, an education platform for pregnant and new moms. We are going to be talking today about Abby's professional background, about the Sybils, and about my experience with the Sybils as well. Abby, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Abby, tell us a little bit about your professional background before we get into the specifics of the Sybils.
Yeah, so I majored in elementary education in college, and I then went on to Bank Street, which is a graduate school in New York City, where I got a master's in education and child development. And I went on to teach in New York City schools for 4 years, which was an amazing experience. Being a teacher is so incredible and rewarding, but very challenging, particularly as I look back on it. But it was a real learning experience. And then I ended up moving to London with my husband, where I taught in 2 UK schools. It was also an incredible experience.
That's really interesting. I don't know that I realized that you trained at Bank Street, because my kids, we talked about this, that my kids go to ECFS?
No. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my kids go, well, my oldest is up at the Bronx campus.
Okay.
So is at Fieldston Lower, and we chose Fieldston Lower because of the progressive pedagogy.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that, because there actually are not that many schools that train educators in that pedagogy.
No, there's not. I mean, there's Bank Street in Columbia in New York City, but Bank Street is known as being quite progressive. So it was a real amazing experience. I loved it. And I was working full time while doing it. So it was amazing. And just being in a classroom and working with kids you almost have your own little community, your own little city. That's how I think about it and you really learn how to work with people, even if they're little, they're still very much people.
Yeah, this is a premature question, but I'm just going to ask it now. We can circle back to it. I wonder how your time working, I wonder how your reflection on your time working with parents, now that you are a parent.
Yes.
And now that you're working actually in the parenting education sphere, so not educating their kids, but educating them about how to show up in parenting and how to be comfortable and confident in parenting. I wonder if that has changed your perspective of your time working with them and of their experiences.
Yeah, it has, because when I was a teacher, I was not a parent. And now when I look back, when I'm having conversations with parents, I think I would have probably been slightly different. I mean, your love and attachment and, joy of your child is so strong. Of course I knew that as a teacher, but I don't think I realized that to quite the same extent. So in parents in conversation, I don't know, I would have had that a little bit more of that knowledge.
Yeah, totally. And how could you possibly know until you know? You know what I mean? You can't.
Suggestions to them. I think not that I was ever harsh, but I think I would have just knowing where they're coming from as a parent maybe would have been a little different.
Yeah, of course. That sounds so natural.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you moved to the UK. What was the difference between your teaching experiences in those two countries? Yeah,
so I started off teaching at the American School in London, which was very similar to my experiences in New York City, progressive, a parent body that was pretty similar to what I was experiencing in New York City. And then after I actually moved to a French-English bilingual school, so it was predominantly French parents, kids with a range of English abilities. I don't speak French, but I would do the English portion, which was just an incredible experience to be able, and most of the teachers were French. So learning from them and seeing their culture, I mean, just everything from what lunch was like. I mean, I would always have lunch at my desk because I had a lot of work to do, and the French never would have lunch at their desk. They always had lunch as a group, and they spent an hour, and it was time to relax and enjoy. And I think they thought this American girl, working through lunch was crazy. But just little things like that, and just interacting with the parents, they're completely different, much more hands-off than American parents. I read that book, Bringing Up Baby. And it does ring true to an extent that they are much much more relaxed. They don't have the same, you don't get emails from them. They're more low key.
Interesting. And did you, in teaching the children, did you see any indication of how that was borne out? Like, did you see that manifested in the kids? And if so, how?
That's a good question. I didn't see it manifest as much in the kids. I mean, both they were all, I felt like, you know, had a positive, I mean, the American kids didn't seem totally stressed out, if that makes sense, because their parents were more aggressive and a little bit more domineering.
Right. But guess who probably did seem more stressed out? The parents.
The parents, yes.
So like, if they're going to come out the same, then like, I'm going to chill out.
I didn't notice a difference in the kids, but there was a drastic difference in the stress level of the parents.
Let that be a lesson to all of us who are watching this right now. Please. That is incredible. So so you ended up when did you become a parent?
So my husband and I were in London for 3 years. And I got pregnant while in London. And so I went through my whole prenatal care and birth and in London. And then we stayed for about 7 more months before moving back to the US with my baby. Yeah.
That's a lot of transition. How did you feel about getting pregnant in London, navigating the medical system? What was that experience like?
I'm a pretty flexible person, I think, which helped just because it is very different. They have, as you know, private health. They have a small private healthcare system, but most people do give birth in the public system in the UK. Some of my American friends, I think, were nervous about the public health system and chose to go private. I didn't. I knew that the public health system I heard so many great things about it, so I figured why not give it a try. We did end up hiring a doula just because of the way it works is, you know, I never really saw a doctor in my entire pregnancy. I think like once or twice someone did my scans, but that's it. I never saw a consistent midwife, and it was very hands-off. I had appointments like once a month where they just measured me and checked the heartbeat, and that's it. So it's definitely a much more low-key environment. I think if I did know friends who did have, you know, issues that came up, and the public health system really did an amazing job. But if you have a normal pregnancy, they are really hands-off. They kind of just let it go. So we ended up just having a doula because I wanted a familiar face, because when I walked to the hospital, I would have no idea who the midwives were, no idea there would probably not be a doctor. So we chose to go that route. And yeah, there's a lot of what I loved about it was there are hospitals, and then many of them, not many, but a fair amount have birth centers attached. And so you can give birth at a birth center that's on the same floor as a labor and delivery. So it just, and I chose to do the birth center because I said, why not try that out? And I just loved that it was connected to a hospital should something go wrong, which I know unfortunately just doesn't exist in the US to the same extent as it does in the UK.
It's really rare to find a birth center attached to a hospital, although I wish I could say that it was happening more often, that they were more prevalent based on the amount of really solid research that's come out about birth outcomes in birth centers and in women-centered care. But unfortunately, a lot of them are actually getting shut down, and certainly off-site birth centers are mostly getting shut down.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting what you said about choosing a doula to be with you at birth, because as a birth educator, I am very aware that research shows that a known person who is there with you for giving you continuous care, so continuity of care is indicated in positive birth outcomes. So you want to have somebody who's there with you the whole time, there to support you, but also to kind of like keep an eye out for what's going on, and somebody who's experienced. So known, continuous, experienced support. And a doula does a good job for that.
She was incredible. I mean, it was priceless. After the experience, I was like, thank God she was there. I mean, it was really so valuable.
How long was your labor?
It was about 12 hours. So it was quick. I ended up, they also let you go much later. So I was 42 weeks pregnant and still not dilated at all. And so the medical doctor said, okay, we need to get this rolling. So they put in they put the tampon type thing, like up your vagina, and then you go home. And they let you go home. And then maybe 6-7 hours later, labor started. And then I went to the hospital after being in labor all night for about 8 hours. And then he was born 4 hours later in the hospital.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes,
It was
I love looking at different at international parenting and birth systems, because again, like we were talking about with the kids and the parenting styles between the French and American parents, we spend so much time justifying and defending the ways that we do things because we have so much invested in them emotionally, financially, just the amount of time we spend on our research, and the stakes feel so high when we make all these decisions about our pregnancy and our parenting. And so we really need to believe in it because we've put a lot into it, So we got to be like drinking our own Kool-Aid. But then you look internationally and it's like, wait, you mean I could do it this other way and maybe spend less energy, fewer resources, and get the same or better outcomes? And it helps us understand, like, step out of our ethnocentricity and take a broader look to bring in better practices to our lives. And so birth is no different. The fact that you could go to 42 weeks is amazing.
I know, they let me do that. So I just because I wanted to have a natural birth, and I knew that if you got induced, that would probably not be likely. So I just waited and waited and waited. And then it was a long 2 weeks, but it was worth it.
So what were we going to say?
I know, I'm just curious to see. I haven't had a child in the US now, so I'll be interested to compare it. But I just, from what friends and family have said, it definitely seems much more medical and hands-on, a lot more appointments. Testing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. And it also depends on what city you birth in, because we have such a decentralized medical system. New York, for instance, so I'm based in New York in the Bay Area, and I'm physically in the Bay Area at this moment, but New York has a much more conservative birth culture than the Bay Area does, even though the demographics actually aren't that different between the two at all levels of socioeconomic status. It's quite comparable, and yet the birth culture in New York is super, super conservative. So if you're going to be in New York when you have your next one, let's talk before you make all your plans. I'll tell you what's up. So you're in the UK, you've had this baby. Tell me what the biggest surprise was. Like, what was the hardest part that you were not prepared for in your perinatal? So your perinatal, by the way, means prenatal, birth, postpartum. Perinatal, right? Experience or transition to parenthood.
For me, I'm trying to, I don't know, I had him naturally, like I said, so I don't know what research says, but I know I felt great afterwards. I don't know if that's, so like physically I felt great. Emotionally, I felt really great. I was just ecstatic for the first few months, and like I felt awesome. I think what was the hardest for me was like the marathon of it. That like it didn't hit me like some people. I think wow, what is going on hit some people at like 2 weeks. I was okay at 2 weeks. For me, it was later when it was like 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and I was like, this baby isn't going anywhere. Like, I am still in charge of it, and this is now my life. Like, this is a big change for me. And so that was, I think, a surprise that I was okay so early, but then later on had a harder time kind of adjusting. And I think part of it was also, as I was planning on being a stay-at-home mom because of the way that the education works. What I would give for childcare was what I was getting paid as a teacher. So I figured might as well stay at home and be with him. And I thought I was going to love that. I love kids and I love being around kids, but I think I soon realized that a newborn and an infant is very different than being a teacher and being with the kids. They couldn't be more opposite. And I was definitely surprised by how much I wanted to get back to work or start doing something besides just being his mom. And that I didn't like spending all day with a baby. And I didn't find it like rewarding or the same amount as going to a job. So I think I thought I was going to love being a stay-at-home mom and like really get into it and want to do that for the next, 5 years as my kids were growing up. And I was surprised by how much I wanted to kind of do something else.
I find it remarkable how so many of us actually can't predict what we're going to want in labor. It's like you think you are, and I'm always amazed by clients surprising me because I think I can predict what their birth is going to be like, or I think I can predict what their, early parenting journey, their transition to parenting journey is going to be like. And then even for myself, like things that I thought that totally changed when I actually went through it. It's so important to be present with yourself and to be able to take those steps as they're happening and then actually treat what is happening at that time.
Exactly. You have to be flexible because you just don't know what it's going to be like. And you have to be able to like make a choice and get something done. Because like, if I had just stayed at home and I had decided not to pursue something else, I think I would have been, you're already lonely and isolated, but I think it would have just been tenfold. And luckily, like I kind of just got up and said, I need to do something else. I was like, my choice is I can go back to work as a teacher. I can start something of my own, or I can stay at home with him all day. And I was like, I don't want to go back to teaching. I don't want to stay at home with him. So my option is go start something. So I was like, that's what it is. And so,
I've always said that even if my work only paid for childcare, I would still do it because that's like, firstly, how passionate I am about what I do. And then secondly, that's how important it is to my identity and my equilibrium. I totally feel you on that. And again, that's something that like, I wouldn't have even necessarily, that element, I don't know that I would have fully predicted that for myself, but here we are.
I definitely wouldn't have thought that. And another challenge is that just in those beginning months is you don't realize how much your baby is asleep during the day, and how, I wanted him to be sleeping at home. So you're just at home a lot by yourself. And especially I was in a city with, friends, but not a ton of friends. I was an expat and a family living 12 hours away by plane. So it's isolating. Yeah.
I have a really good friend of mine who gave birth to her first in London and had a very similar experience of her postpartum journey. And again, a lot of expats do, no matter where you're living. And there are people who are living, Americans, a lot of Americans live in diaspora as well from their families. So they're not, we're not supported. We live in such a transient, mobile culture that it can be really, really challenging. It's the number one thing I see with families in our generation, with parents, and especially with moms, is just feeling so under-supported. Because it's not, we did not evolve to parent in this way. So how did this whole experience contribute to the Sybils? Tell us what got you there, and then tell us what the Sybils is.
Yeah. So like I said, I think I just decided that I wanted to do something on my own. And that really motivated me. I wanted to get back to work to a certain extent. And that pushed me to find something. I originally, in the UK, they have these amazing prenatal classes that has been part of their culture for 60 years, where you're put in your prenatal group based on your location and your due date. And you take your class in a pub. It's very social. You become good friends with the other women and their partners because they all live 10 minutes from you, and they have babies also due in February. So it was an amazing experience. And so when we moved back to Brooklyn, I thought, okay, I'm going to start something like that in Brooklyn. They obviously have prenatal classes, but if we could organize it a little bit better so that it was more conducive to social and more of a village, like we talked about. Instead of just like your prenatal classes with a random group of people from all over the city in different neighborhoods. That was what got me started on this. And then as soon as I moved to New York, I realized that like finding a venue was going to be really tricky just because of cost. Whereas in London, you can just do it in a pub upstairs that kind of just give you the room. And New York is just a different place. It's a different culture. People were saying that people don't really do prenatal classes as much because it takes so much time. Everyone's so busy. So for whatever reason, I ended up talking with somebody who led webinars on sleep. And I said, started to think about it and realized how there's so much. As a new mom, I was on Instagram a lot too. So while all this is going on, I was on Instagram kind of finding all these experts to help with that first year of life, like newborn sleep and feeding. And I didn't read books or articles. I think we now get our information kind of through social media to a certain extent. So she was talking about sleep webinars, and I said, well, there could be a webinars about, so many different topics. Like you could have a site where this was all more aggregated in one place, and where, social media is a labyrinth, hard to find what you're looking for. It could be in one location. And also the content could be, people who put content on there could be paid, as opposed to just giving away free stuff on Instagram. So I started to think that through. And then in January, I used Hey Mama to help find somebody to build a website. So the website was started in January and it just launched in July. Obviously the timing is both like great, because now so much of our education is moving online, but now I'm of course seeing lots of things pop up doing something kind of similar. But
that is always going to be the case. You will always, the minute that you think of something, it's just that your antennae are now up.
Yeah.
And you're like taking in that kind of content.
Exactly.
And you're vulnerable because you're putting yourself out there. And so then
you're
you
just overly sensitive to that kind of stuff.
Totally. You just have to stay in your own lane, do the work, because no one's going to do it exactly like you. If you haven't been looking outside of yourself to copy someone else, then probably what you do is going to be different. And the people that you attract to be your experts are going to be unique and different, and offering a different vibe or a different set of information anyway. So stay to your course. I think it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know that I'm super sensitive to, that's what's hard for me. And it's just a personal thing, is like seeing competitors is like, makes me,
Yeah. Well, this is your first time. Yeah. No, this is your first dive into entrepreneurship.
I'm totally out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Welcome to the vulnerability bloodbath that you've just really, you've gotten right in there. Yeah. No, it's good though. But it's good. It's just that you just grow like stronger. Your skin gets a little thicker. Your conviction gets a little bit sharper,
And just like everyone says, just stick with your vision and just keep going towards that. And like, look at what other people are doing, but don't get like water.
Yeah. And really don't look too much at what other people are doing. Truly. Do, because you don't want to be ignorant to the competition, but you just really got to keep your blinders on and just like stay, your course. Tell us a little bit more about the kinds of experts that you have on the Sybils besides me.
Yeah. So the labor and delivery. So the classes start with pregnancy, and go up to the first year. I'd love to eventually go kind of backwards into fertility and forwards into toddler. But for now it's kind of 12 weeks pregnant to 12 months of a child. And my view is I have a balanced approach, I think, in general with my life. So I find experts who are obviously, very well, have a great background, very knowledgeable, evidence-based, and give a balanced view about what they think, and offer advice in that way that's, clear and balanced, and kind of allows women to get information that they can then make their own decisions based off of. So that's kind of what I look for in somebody. And I just, as soon as I talk to somebody on the phone, I just get a initial like click. I'm like, this person is right. I just think I kind of work that way. I'm quick to make decisions, for better or for worse. Maybe it's impulsive, but so far it's worked out. I just get a sense of the person, and I want them to be, almost as a friend, offering advice as a friend would, kind of that tone, and, community. And because when I was on Instagram following people as I do now, I loved it because you kind of gain a connection with the person giving you advice. So you kind of want to see, that connection and that, friendly vibe.
I just had this idea. What if you did like video intros somewhere on your site? I'm just throwing that little thing out there.
Yeah. That's good.
That's kind of interesting. You know how people like to do like a little sample?
Yeah.
What if what if all of the instructors did a little teaser where they introduced themselves, like instead of the bio, there was like a video bio?
I love that.
Okay. Just
with social media, the way our brain works right now is we want to find a connection with somebody.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like when you get advice, you want to be able to see that person, interact with that person.
Yeah.
And so that's important. But yeah, I've started to do a little bit more on Instagram live and that sort of thing. So sort of like getting people to know.
Yeah. Well, you could do it on IGTV so that it's stored. And then you could have all of your instructors, you could do a series of videos where all of us go on and just blah, blah, blah. We all just send you a video.
Yeah.
Just saying. That's an idea. Okay. So now I'm like, should our massage?
You always have good ideas.
Do that? The brain doesn't stop. Okay.
You have good ideas. You're always.
Girl, I like yours too. So I got to teach 3 really cool webinars that I'm excited for people to get to check out. I did the 3 sort of like birth oriented original videos. I'm sure that there will be more birth educators. And again, I think that's part of what's so cool about like the idea of like a video interview or whatever, is that I might not be the person that somebody connects with as like a character, right? As a personality. And so maybe somebody else who I don't know, is some other way, might be the better person.
Yeah, exactly. So like, the way it works right now is I have pre-recorded workshops on there now about labor and delivery, breastfeeding, newborn care, and postpartum. And then each week it'll be introducing a new kind of expert, a new topic. So for example, we have I'm doing sleep. So I have like a sleep consultant in September. I have a really amazing psychiatrist who focuses on women's mental health. There's somebody who's a pelvic floor therapist who focuses just on women and pregnancy. And then I also kind of I think webinars allow you to be flexible. So like I want to get into other topics. Like there's this really cool woman who does herbs and apothecary for women. I think she came on.
Yeah. We haven't launched her Zoomcast yet, but Beth Sacknoff. She's incredible.
So I would love for her to come on to talk about like, herbs in motherhood and kind of, I think there's someone who could do essential oils. So I'm just kind of casting the net wide and seeing and just bringing all these, I love that. That's my favorite part about the Sybils, is just the interacting with the people. And I learned so much. Yeah. And thinking about like great content that moms are going to want.
You also started, I met you through Hadley Stewart, who's from Born to Me Baby. Yeah. She's an incredible pediatric sleep consultant, and she's worked with friends of mine. She's worked with clients that I've referred to her. And she's become a friend of mine as well over the last few years. She and I met through a panel that we were on together. And I think we got connected like through Hey Mama or something as well, which for those of you who don't know, you'll hear it mentioned a lot on the Glow Zoomcast because it's an incredible networking group. And so, I found like I'm working on a book right now for Glow, and that I found my publisher through there. It's just a great network. So Hadley is such a great connection because she's so solid in this space. Like she really, truly knows her stuff. Yeah, and anyone who she's connecting you to is going to be of really high quality. So you just have a really high quality stable of experts that are on the Sybils. And I feel really excited to be part of that. And I'm also really happy for you. I'm really, really happy for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've really loved it. I keep telling myself it's just, like you said, as long as it pays for childcare, even if it doesn't pay for childcare, it's just so good for women to get out and do something while they're a mom. Like you just have to have something of your own identity, whatever it may be. That's definitely what I've learned, how important that is.
Yeah.
It just
totally
keeps you engaged and excited and,
Can you tell us a little bit about the price point of the webinars and how we can access them if we aren't exactly flush right now, considering how wild the world is?
Yeah, exactly. So the price point is, it's $30 for a webinar. And we always have a discount going on. So it realistically is more like 25, probably by the 2025. And you can get a bundle of them. So for example, like the labor and delivery class is 3 workshops that when bundled, they end up being about $70, which is a pretty good price for like your full labor and delivery class.
For 3 hours of everything.
Class. Same like breastfeeding is 3 classes, 3 hours, 70, plus all the discounts. But then of course, I already have something on the website that says no questions asked. This content is for everybody. Your socioeconomic background should not determine the information that you get in pregnancy and motherhood. So right now, if you can email me and get free access to everything. So that's a really important part of the Sybils. And I also am looking to partner with other organizations to give free access and workshops to low-income women, Black women who really deserve and need the information.
Awesome. So yeah, absolutely. That information is crucial for everybody. Okay, awesome. So we can find out more about that on the website, and I'm sure we can either DM you on Instagram or email you directly through the website to find out more about that.
Yeah, I mean, like right now there's a code nice to meet you for 20% off any of the workshops. But yeah, let me know. Text me, email. Would love to. I'm just trying to get people out the information because it's really good.
Yeah. Totally. Tell us exactly where we can find the Sybils online.
So you can go to www.thesybils.com. Sybil is Sibyls. So the Sybils actually, that was a hard part about starting a company. I was thinking of a name, particularly with Instagram with so many things already taken. So the Sybils are female oracles or women oracles in ancient Greece. So they gave advice and guidance to women, seeking their, expertise. So I thought that it just fit so perfectly with what my vision was for the company. But it's a little tricky to say and, spell, but it's okay.
I love it. I mean, Sybil was one of our names that we had on a short list for kids.
It's also like a UK, a lot of people, not a lot, but it is more popular in London. I love that.
Yeah, Downton Abbey. I know what's up.
Yeah.
That show.
There you go.
Awesome.
And then follow on Instagram, which is @the.Sybils.
So the.SibYls.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Abby, for chatting. I really enjoyed exploring all of these different topics with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me on.
See ya.
Amazing. Bye.